Captain Eric Nolan leaned back in his chair on the bridge of the Odyssey, eyes scanning the star-studded blackness outside. The calm was abruptly shattered by a series of sharp beeps from the navigation console. "Captain, we're picking up a distress signal," reported Lieutenant Harper, her fingers dancing over the holographic controls. "It's weak, but definitely there." Nolan straightened up, interest piqued. "Source." Pinpointing now. "It's coming from a spacecraft within the asteroid field not far from our current trajectory," Harper replied, adjusting the display to show the field's dense cluster of floating rocks. "Can we get any ID on the vessel?" Nolan asked, his voice laced with curiosity. Harper shook her head. "It's unregistered, or the ID is being scrambled by the asteroids. Hard to tell." Nolan considered their options briefly. "Set a course, Harper. Let's take a closer look and keep an eye out for any debris." As the Odyssey maneuvered towards the source of the signal, Nolan called his chief security officer, Sergeant Mills, to the bridge. "Mills, prep your team for a possible boarding. We don't know what we're walking into." Mills nodded, her expression serious. "Understood, Captain. We'll be ready." Minutes later, the Odyssey edged closer to the distressed ship, the silhouette of the damaged vessel becoming visible against the backdrop of a large asteroid. The ship looked battered, its hull scarred with what appeared to be blast marks. "Visuals up, Harper." "Let's see what we're dealing with," Nolan instructed. The main screen flickered to life, showing the alien craft in more detail. It was sleek, yet clearly designed for speed and agility, now marred by battle damage and derelict in space. "Life signs?" Nolan asked, his gaze fixed on the screen. "Just one," Captain Harper replied, checking her readings. "But it's faint. Whoever they are, they might be injured." "Okay, that settles it. We're going in," Nolan decided, standing up. "Mills, you're with me." "Harper, you have the con." The rescue team suited up quickly and boarded the shuttle. The short trip through the asteroid field was tense, with Mills maneuvering deftly between the spinning rocks. They docked with the alien craft, the magnetic seals engaging with a solid thump. Nolan led the way through the airlock, laser rifle at the ready. The inside of the ship was dark and eerily silent except for the occasional creak of the stressed hull. They moved cautiously, their lights cutting through the gloom. As they approached the cockpit, they found a figure slumped over the controls. Nolan stepped forward, lowering his weapon. "Hello, we're here to help. Can you understand me?" The figure stirred, raising her head slowly. It was a young woman, her features distinctly non-human, with faintly glowing skin and large luminous eyes. She was unmistakably royal, her garments, though tattered, of fine quality. "Please help me," she whispered in heavily accented English, her voice weak but urgent. "We've got you," Nolan reassured her, signaling Mills to advance with a medical kit. "What happened here?" "They attacked my world, my family," she murmured, pain evident in her voice. "I am Princess Alara, last of the Terrans." Nolan exchanged a glance with Mills. A princess, alone and hunted, this rescue just became a diplomatic incident. But first, they needed to get her to safety. "Let's get her back to the Odyssey," Nolan said decisively. "We'll figure out our next move when she's secure and we know more about who's after her." As they helped Alara to her feet, Nolan felt the weight of the situation settle on him. Whoever wanted her gone had resources, and now, by rescuing her, his ship was in the crosshairs. But leaving her wasn't an option, not while he was in command. Back aboard the Odyssey, Captain Nolan led Princess Alara through the sterile corridors to the medical bay, his mind racing with the implications of her presence on his ship. "Sit tight, Princess. Our medic will take a look at you shortly," Nolan said as they entered the well-equipped medical suite. Alara nodded, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar technology with a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "Thank you, Captain Nolan. Your assistance is most unexpected, given the circumstances of my people," she said. As the ship's doctor, Dr. Sato, began examining Alara, Nolan stepped out into the hallway where Sergeant Mills was waiting. "What's the situation, Mills?" Nolan asked, keeping his voice low. Mills looked uneasy. "Sir, the crew's buzzing about the princess. Word's gotten out that she's royalty and a target. There's concern about who might come looking for her." Nolan rubbed his temples. "Understood. Keep everyone on high alert and limit access to our guest, only essential personnel in and out." Returning to the medical bay, Nolan found Alara sitting up, speaking quietly with Dr. Sato. He waited for a pause before interjecting. "Princess, if you feel up to it, I'd like to discuss your situation more formally in my office." We need to understand what we're dealing with." Alara agreed, and soon they were seated in Nolan's sparse office. The captain offered her a drink, which she declined, her demeanor solemn. "Captain, to say that my world is in turmoil would be an understatement," Alara began, her voice steady despite the clear strain. "Rebels have overtaken the royal palace. My family, I fear they are lost. I escaped purely by fortune, thanks to a loyal few." Nolan listened intently, aware of the gravity of her words. "Do you have a destination in mind, somewhere you think you'll be safe?" "I was hoping to seek asylum on Zil, a neutral planet in the Harlan sector. They are known for their fairness and discretion," Alara explained. Nolan considered this, tapping a digital map projected onto his desk. "Zil is a few days' travel from here. We can make course adjustments, but we should expect that the rebels might pursue us." Alara's expression hardened with resolve. "I understand the risks, Captain. I can only hope my presence doesn't bring conflict to your crew." Nolan gave a reassuring nod. "We knew the job was dangerous when we signed up. Right now, my priority is getting you to safety. We'll deal with any problems as they come." After Alara had left to rest, Nolan called a meeting with his senior officers. "We have a high-value passenger on board, and she's brought some serious baggage. I need everyone sharp and ready for what might come our way. Harper, plot a course for Zil. Mills, double up on security details, especially near the guest quarters and the bridge." As the officers dispersed to carry out his orders, Nolan stayed back, staring at the star map. He was used to dealing with smugglers and space pirates, not political refugees and interstellar rebels. Yet here he was, charting a course not only through space but through a political minefield. He had never intended to navigate such perilous waters. The Odyssey hummed through the darkness of space, its engines glowing faintly as it navigated towards the Harlan sector. Captain Nolan, ever vigilant, monitored the ship's progress from the bridge, closely observing the data streaming across the multiple displays. "Harper, status report," Nolan called out, his gaze fixed on the forward screen displaying the star map. Lieutenant Harper adjusted her console and replied, "Course to Zil is locked in, Captain. We should arrive in approximately 3 days. However, there's something else. I've detected unusual sensor pings at R6. Could be nothing, but it's persistent." Nolan's eyes narrowed. "Define unusual." "It's sporadic but patterned, like a distant ship might make if it were trying to remain unnoticed," Harper explained, her voice tinged with concern. "Could be our rebel friends or worse," Nolan muttered, turning to his communications officer. "Johnson, any luck with those encrypted signals?" Johnson shook his head. "Still working through the encryption, sir. If someone is tailing us, they're keeping their communications tight." Nolan strode across the bridge to Harper's station. "Keep an eye on those pings. If they get any closer, I want to know immediately." The captain's predictions proved accurate sooner than expected. Within hours, the sensor pings had not only multiplied but were rapidly closing in on their position. "Captain, we've got multiple contacts now, all coming in fast," Harper reported, tension evident in her voice. "Visuals," now Nolan commanded, stepping closer to the main viewport. The screen flickered and then displayed the chilling sight of several sleek dark vessels, their designs unmistakably Terran. They were fast approaching, cutting through space with deliberate aggression. "Looks like they want to make sure the princess doesn't get away," Nolan noted grimly. "Battle stations, everyone. Prepare for possible combat." As the crew scrambled to their positions, Nolan opened a channel to Princess Alara's quarters. "Princess, it seems your pursuers have found us. I need you to stay in your room and keep the door sealed until I say otherwise." Alara's voice came through calm yet firm. "Understood, Captain. I trust your judgment." Turning to Mills, Nolan issued his orders. "Get your team ready. If they board, I want non-lethal resistance. We need to hold them off without escalating violence if possible." The Odyssey shuddered as the first volleys of plasma fire struck their shields. "Shields at 75% and holding, but we won't withstand a prolonged assault," Harper reported, her eyes locked on her readouts. Nolan gritted his teeth. "Let's not give them a prolonged target." "Harper, initiate evasive maneuvers, pattern Delta." "Johnson, any progress on that communication?" "Breaking through now," Captain Johnson replied, fingers flying over his console. "Sending you the feed." The bridge speakers crackled to life, broadcasting a harsh, commanding voice. "Odyssey, this is Commander Ryak of the Terralian Rebel Force. Hand over the traitor Alara and cease your intervention, or we will destroy your ship." Nolan responded without hesitation. "Commander Ryak, This is Captain Eric Nolan of the Odyssey. We do not recognize your authority, nor will we hand over Princess Alara. Any hostile actions against this vessel will be met with force. Nolan of the Odyssey. We are a civilian vessel and claim protection under the Galactic Concord. We have no interest in your war, but we will defend ourselves if forced. As he cut the communication, Nolan signaled to Harper. Take us into the asteroid field. It'll give us some cover and level the playing field. The Odyssey plunged into the dense field, asteroids providing a treacherous terrain that both hindered and helped. Nolan knew this was a gamble, but it was better than an open fight they could not hope to win. Hold on, everyone, Nolan said, watching the pursuing ships struggle to navigate the dense asteroid field. Let's see how they like playing in our court. The Odyssey's hull groaned as it narrowly avoided another massive asteroid, the erratic path providing a temporary respite from the Terralian rebels' pursuit. Captain Nolan kept his eyes glued to the main screen, watching as the enemy ships struggled to maintain their chase amidst the tumbling rocks. Looks like they're not as nimble in these conditions, Lieutenant Harper noted with a hint of satisfaction. Nolan nodded, his mind racing through their options. It's buying us time, but we can't shake them off forever in this field. We need a more permanent solution. He tapped the communication panel. Johnson, patch me through to the Xanthar homeworld. It's time we made a call we hope to avoid. Within minutes, a new face appeared on the screen, a Xanthar official with sharp features and piercing eyes. Captain Nolan, this is an unexpected pleasure. To what do we owe the honor? We're in a bit of a bind, Nolan admitted, getting straight to the point. We have Princess Alara of Tyria aboard, and she's being pursued by rebel forces. We seek temporary asylum on your planet. The Xanthar official's eyes narrowed, the implications clear. And why should we involve ourselves in Terralian affairs? What's in it for Xanthar? Nolan was prepared for this. In exchange for your protection, the princess is willing to share Terralian technology with your people, technology that could benefit Xanthar greatly. The official paused, considering the offer. After a moment, he replied, Very well, Captain. Proceed to these coordinates. We will discuss the terms of this alliance in person. As the communication ended, Nolan turned to Harper. Set a course for Xanthar. Let's hope this gamble pays off. The journey to Xanthar was tense, with Harper skillfully navigating out of the asteroid field and setting a direct course for the alien planet. As they approached, the towering cities and advanced infrastructure of Xanthar came into view, a stark contrast to the desolation they had just escaped. Upon landing, Nolan and Princess Alara were quickly ushered into a high-security meeting with Xanthar leaders. The room was stark and cold, filled with officials who viewed the human and Terran with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Princess Alara took the lead, her voice steady despite the clear fatigue from the ordeal. Honored leaders of Xanthar, I am Princess Alara of Tyria. I seek your protection from forces that wish to end my life. In exchange, I offer knowledge and technology that will advance your civilization. The Xanthar officials whispered among themselves before one stepped forward, a female with a commanding presence. We understand your plight, Princess Alara. Xanthar will consider your request for asylum. However, we must first evaluate the value of the technology you offer and the potential risks involved in sheltering you. Nolan and Alara exchanged a glance, understanding the gravity of the situation. Nolan stepped forward, his voice firm. We appreciate your willingness to consider our request. I assure you, the technology Princess Alara offers will significantly benefit Xanthar. We are ready to demonstrate its value at your convenience. The female official nodded. Very well. Follow me. We will discuss the terms of this alliance in detail. As they followed the official, Nolan couldn't help but feel a mixture of hope and apprehension. The future of their mission and possibly their lives now rested on the negotiations that were about to unfold. We are prepared to offer you sanctuary, Princess Alara. However, the technology must be transferred immediately, and you will remain under our protection until we deem the situation resolved. Nolan watched carefully, aware of the delicate balance of power at play. We agree to your terms, he said, knowing full well the strategic necessity of their cooperation. As they left the meeting, Nolan felt the weight of their precarious position. Aligning with Xanthar was risky but necessary. As they walked back to their quarters under the watchful eyes of Xanthar guards, Nolan whispered to Alara, Stay sharp, Princess. We're not out of the woods yet. This alliance is as fragile as it is necessary. Alara nodded, her expression grave. I understand, Captain. Thank you for standing by me. With the Odyssey parked on the Xanthar landing pad, and the crew on high alert, Nolan prepared for any scenario. The next few days would be crucial in determining the fate of their unexpected alliance. As days turned into nights on the planet Xanthar, the uneasy alliance between Captain Nolan, Princess Alara, and their alien hosts deepened amidst a backdrop of political maneuvering and covert surveillance. The Odyssey's crew, now confined to a designated compound near the city center, worked tirelessly to uphold their part of the agreement with the Xanthar. In a secure room transformed into a makeshift lab, Princess Alara and the Xanthar scientists pored over data tablets and holographic displays, transferring and discussing Tyrellian technology. Nolan watched closely, ensuring that the technology shared did not compromise Tyrellian security or give the Xanthar undue advantage. "Make sure all the protocols are followed, Alara. We can't afford any slip-ups," Nolan cautioned, his voice low as he observed a group of Xanthar officials who were scrutinizing every detail. Alara nodded, understanding the stakes. "I am aware, Captain. We give them enough to satisfy their curiosity but not enough to use against us or anyone else." Despite the cooperation in the lab, tensions simmered beneath the surface. The Xanthar military presence around their quarters was a constant reminder of their fragile position. Each day brought challenging negotiations with Xanthar leaders who pressed for more insights and demonstrations of advanced Tyrellian technology. One evening, as Nolan reviewed security protocols with Sergeant Mills, Lieutenant Harper rushed in, her expression tense. "Captain, I've intercepted some troubling communications. It seems there are factions within Xanthar that aren't satisfied with the current arrangement. They're pushing for complete access to all Tyrellian data." Nolan's jaw tightened. "Keep monitoring those communications, Harper. We need to know who's behind this and how serious they are." The following day brought no relief. During a scheduled meeting with the Xanthar High Council, the atmosphere was charged, the council members more demanding. "We have offered you refuge at great risk to ourselves," stated one of the senior counselors, his eyes cold and calculating. "It is only fair that you reciprocate in full. We require unrestricted access to Tyrellian defense systems." Nolan stepped forward, his stance firm. "With all due respect, Counselor, our agreement was for civilian technological cooperation, not military. We must adhere to the terms to maintain trust on both sides." The counselor's response was icy. "Perhaps you misunderstand your position, Captain. We are not requesting, we are requiring." The meeting ended on a tense note, with Nolan and Alara returning to their quarters under the watchful gaze of Xanthar guards. Once safe inside, Nolan called a discreet meeting with his senior officers. "We need to prepare for the worst," he declared, his voice grave. "If the Xanthar decide to take what they want by force, we'll need to evacuate quickly. Mills, coordinate with the Odyssey crew and make sure every system is on standby. Harper, keep an eye on all outgoing communications. We can't let them blindside us." As they strategized late into the night, Nolan couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. Their position on Xanthar was becoming increasingly precarious, and each day brought them closer to a potential confrontation that could jeopardize not just their mission but their lives. The tension on Xanthar escalated quickly after the contentious meeting. Captain Nolan grew increasingly concerned about their ability to leave the planet peacefully. He noticed more frequent patrols and a subtle but definite increase in surveillance. The Xanthar intentions were becoming less about alliance and more about control. "Perhaps you misunderstand your position, Captain. We are not requesting, we are requiring." The meeting ended on a tense note, with Nolan and Alara returning to their quarters under the watchful gaze of Xanthar guards. Once safe inside, Nolan called a discreet meeting with his senior officers. "We need to prepare for the worst," he declared, his voice grave. "If the Xanthar decide to take what they want by force, we'll need to evacuate quickly. Mills, coordinate with the Odyssey crew and make sure every system is on standby. Harper, keep an eye on all outgoing communications. We can't let them blindside us." As they strategized late into the night, Nolan couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. Their position on Xanthar was becoming increasingly precarious, and each day brought them closer to a potential confrontation that could jeopardize not just their mission but their lives. The tension on Xanthar escalated quickly after the contentious meeting. Captain Nolan grew increasingly concerned about their ability to leave the planet peacefully. He noticed more frequent patrols and a subtle but definite increase in surveillance. The Xanthar intentions were becoming less about alliance and more about control. While the crew of the Odyssey stayed mostly confined to their quarters under the guise of security, Nolan took to routinely checking in with his team to keep morale high and ensure everyone was prepared for any sudden changes. Late one evening, as Nolan reviewed the latest security feeds with Sergeant Mills, Lieutenant Harper interrupted them with urgent news. "Captain, I've intercepted a transmission. It's coded, but from what I've decoded, it seems a group within the Xanthar government is planning to hand Princess Alara over to the Tyrellian rebels." Nolan's face hardened, his worst fears inching closer to reality. "How soon?" "Within the next 24 hours. From what I gather, they're planning a handover at a remote airfield not far from here," Harper replied, the gravity of the situation evident in her voice. "We can't let that happen," Nolan stated firmly. "Mills, assemble a strike team. We're going to make sure the princess is moved to a secure location, our terms, not theirs." As Mills and Harper left to prepare, Nolan went to inform Princess Alara of the latest development. He found her in her room, surrounded by datapads and notes for her ongoing technology transfer sessions. "Princess, there's been a change. We need to move you to a new location immediately. It's no longer safe here," Nolan explained, without revealing too much detail about the intercepted message. Alara looked up, her expression resolute. "I trust your judgment, Captain. Lead the way." Under the cover of darkness, Nolan, Alara, and a small team equipped with stealth gear made their way through the service corridors of their compound, avoiding main passageways where Xanthar guards were most prevalent. They reached a service exit that led to a series of maintenance tunnels. Nolan knew these tunnels could take them to a secondary hangar where the Odyssey shuttle was kept. Just as they were about to enter the final stretch leading to the hangar, they were ambushed. Xanthar forces, led by the same counselor who had demanded military secrets, appeared seemingly out of nowhere. "Going somewhere, Captain?" The counselor sneered, his weapon trained on Nolan. "It seems we have a misunderstanding." "We were just ensuring the princess's safety as per our agreement," Nolan countered calmly, assessing their escape options. The counselor chuckled darkly. "The only safety concern here is what happens if you continue to interfere with our plans. Hand her over, and we might let you and your crew leave Xanthar alive." Nolan glanced at Alara, giving her a slight nod. In a swift motion, Alara triggered a small device she had been concealing, emitting a blinding flash that disoriented the Xanthar soldiers. "Run," Nolan shouted, grabbing Alara's arm as they sprinted towards the hangar. Mills and her team provided cover, exchanging fire with the Xanthar forces. They reached the shuttle, and Harper, who had been prepped by Nolan earlier, fired up the engines. "Everyone aboard, now," she yelled over the roar of the engines. As they lifted off, Nolan took one last look at the Xanthar compound, knowing they were burning bridges but also saving lives. Now airborne, their immediate objective was clear: get Alara to safety and regroup. To plan their next move away from the increasingly hostile grip of the Xanthar. The Odyssey shuttle vibrated with the intensity of the ascent as it shot through Xanthar's atmosphere, pursued by the relentless fire from Xanthar military crafts. Captain Nolan gripped the console tightly, his eyes darting between the radar and the rear view where enemy ships dotted their tail. "Harper, I need more speed." Nolan barked, his voice tense over the sound of alarms. "I'm pushing the engines as hard as I can," Captain Harper replied, her hands flying over the controls in a desperate bid to coax more power from the shuttle. Behind them, the sleek Xanthar fighters gained. Their technology was advanced, their pilots ruthless. The situation looked grim. Sergeant Mills, checking her weapon, shouted over the chaos, "We've got a couple of fighter drones left. Should I deploy them for cover?" "Do it," Nolan commanded without hesitation. With precise movements, Mills launched the small automated drones, which flew back towards the chasing fighters. Moments later, the sky lit up as the drones collided with two of the Xanthar ships, creating a fiery barrier that bought them precious seconds. "We need a plan, and we need it now," Nolan yelled, turning to Princess Alara, who remained surprisingly composed under the circumstances. Alara leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the star map displayed on the screen. "There's a nebula not far from here, Captain. If we can reach it, we might be able to lose them in the gas clouds." Nolan nodded sharply. Harper, set course for the nebula. "Let's hope this works." As they approached the nebula, the colorful clouds of gas enveloped the shuttle, reducing visibility to near zero. Harper reduced their speed, navigating more by instinct than by sight. Inside the nebula, the Xanthar pursuit slowed. The volatile gases interfered with their sensors, giving the Odyssey's shuttle a ghostly cover. "Looks like we're clear for now," Harper sighed, relief evident in her voice as the enemy blips on the radar faded. Nolan turned to Alara. "Your quick thinking saved."